Hello and welcome to Radio Free Nintendo. It is March 5th, 2026, and this is episode 966. I am James Jones. I'm joined today by Guillaume Vayette.
Hello, hello.
The prankster who's been foiled by noise canceling.
I refuse to elaborate. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I refuse to elaborate also. It's
you can't. For legal reasons, you can't.
Yeah.
I mean, he could just leave it in. Like, he has access to all of the evidence of the event that transpired. He could simply put it in the show. But I would argue it's not particularly funny. It would be funnier to not do that and leave in this diatribe about what the fuck we were talking about. Also joined by Mr. Greg Lay.
No, everyone.
And John Lindemann.
Great to be here, James.
It's so convincing. I'm fucking here again. Jesus Christ.
Here we are.
All right. Yeah, god damn it. I could be playing Oblivion right now.
Hey, I didn't say that. You did.
Right. You would say I could be buying Oblivion right now.
Touche, as the French would say, Guillaume.
I mean, honestly, John could be playing Oblivion right now. He could have his controller set up so he's walking up a mountain.
I could. Actually, I really should have done that, but that's beside the point. I'll get into that later.
We do have a break, so you could do it then.
Yeah.
We're going to start this episode with listener mail. There's been a lot of stuff going on. There's some news. There's some big releases that have happened this week, but we're gonna start with the mail of listening because we haven't done it in a bit, and we've got some, I'm going to say potentially meatier emails. But before we get into it, every so often I have to come on here and beg and be like, guys, please, I need some good email. I'm not saying if we don't use your email, it's a bad email. What I am saying is we definitely have some bad email. And the stuff that that gets us excited to answer it gives us the opportunity to like really riff and get into it. Gotten a little bit less of that lately than we usually like. So it's time for you to send us some email, some good email, some like get in the kitchen, cook up a good email. And what you could do with that email is you send it to us at an email address. That is rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. That is rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. Why do we need your email? Well, because we have an entire segment dedicated to responding to your email. So if you send us good email, you get to have a good segment. If you send us bad email, we just don't do listener mail. If you send us really bad email, well, we might get to have a really good segment. But don't strive to send us the worst possible email, because as much fun as that is, it really just, more than likely, you're like being bad on purpose usually just results in you being something that's like not good bad, just regular bad. So send us an email. rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. It can be introspective. It can be a fun little game that you've thought up. It can be like an adventurous topic you want us to run with. You could have a J&J Dream Factory pitch, and we could tell you why your idea is fundamentally not cocaine laced enough. These are your opportunities to impress us. Impress us with your writing skills. Show us that all hope for the future and the ability to create words on a page that can motivate and inspire aren't dead at the hands of LLMs that produce formulaic dog shit. Show creativity. That's what I want. I want some creativity this week. So, emails, again, rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. I write y'all an essay every week to go with the show. Y'all can write me a fucking email. It's not that hard. So do it. Or I'm going to pull Sarah from Iowa City back out and start sending some real horse shit in. You never know when she's going to come back. For those of you who don't know that, 15-year-old reference? John, Greg, and I cooked up the idea of creating a fan mail character and not telling Johnny and just sending increasingly unhinged Lindemann fan mail. But the problem is the very first one of those that got read, it was so hard to keep it together.
Yeah.
So hard to keep it together. And then Iowa City got hit by a 100-year flood. Just completely unrelated to the fact that I decided to put her in Iowa City. And I was like, shit.
That was Sarah from Iowa City, if I remember correctly, right?
It was, yes.
Yeah. I mean, this is even before the whole Lon Jindaman conspiracy started.
Oh yeah, this was a long time ago. This was us deciding that we were going to start fucking with the host of the show for no good reason except it might be funny. Also, John and I weren't getting fan mail, and we felt bad about it.
Yeah,
that was the other thing. So we decided we were going to take matters into our own hands. Yeah,
there was a little bit of malice involved, I will say.
It was a little bit. It was 100% malice. This is you and I showing up with Wacky Dog and Babysitting Mama the same day. Like this isn't. There's nothing but malice. It's pure malice.
We were kind of throwing our own sort of low-key tantrums. So
yeah. I mean, if you go back and listen to those episodes, it's just John and I sniping at each other while Greg and Johnny or Greg and Guillaume try to have a real conversation.
Yeah, didn't we actually start to get emails saying like, "Do you guys really not like each other?" I think we did at one point.
And they're right.
Yes, we started to go back and forth like so savagely Constantly. That people were like, "Do you guys seriously like not like each other?" And we're like, whatever.
He sucks, but I mean, whatever. Lots of people suck. It's fine.
Yep. It's all good.
Emails, rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. Guess who on the show doesn't like who else? Start some shit. I'm good for that. Let's go.
Let's
start a rumor. Make up your own headcanon about who wants to fight. You'll be surprised the real answer. But we have some email this week that is good. That does make us feel alive. Does give us a sense of opportunity to impart thoughts upon the world. And I'm going to read the first one, which doesn't really do that. It's much more of a factual question. AG writes, "Greetings all. Given that Pokemon's big 30th anniversary is coming up, I would like to ask the crew, what in the hell is going on with the Pokemon trading card game? Over the pandemic lockdown, it seems like the Pokemon card collecting became more of a money pit for everyone, as hoarders and speculators entered the market to a significant degree, and actually obtaining new cards became much harder. These weird spectator events also started to occur as people started unboxing card packs looking for rare Vards, and new marketplaces exist now for reselling cards, even some from the live streams of them being opened. Since then, the Pokemon TCG craze has not abated, and how when new sets are launched, again, it becomes a nightmare to obtain any at list price. The number of retailers selling these cards has increased too. Been more and more promo event cards too, but given the fiasco at the Van Gogh Museum, this doesn't seem to have been fully thought out. So is this craze from a lack of supply? Maybe the Pokemon Company want the cards to be considered high priority purchase, but surely they could increase supply by 25% and not even hit the ceiling of the demand for these cards. They even remade the digital card game on smart devices and PC just to have a way for people to actually play the TGC and not be gated by the cards collectors. I tried to do a little narrative in how I delivered that email. I went from nice, warm to terrified, exasperated, down to just dejection. We talked about this a little bit last week. Not last week, 2 weeks ago. Because Pokemon Company International, which is a branch of the Pokemon Company, purchased, I can't remember the name of the company now, but they are a collector's logistics company that specializes in trading cards. They don't print them. They are warehousing, distribution. They might be involved in packaging. I didn't do a full rundown of the company. So they add to the vertical integration that had already happened a couple years ago when the Pokemon Company International purchased the largest printer of trading cards in the U.S. So they have, they may not have been the largest. The distribution company was definitely the largest, but the printing one I'm not sure about. But I do know that they bought a giant fucking warehouse that people said could not logistically be converted into a card printing factory, and then proceeded to do exactly that. So it's not for nothing. They're trying. They are making big, heady investments to purchase, the resources necessary to, try to produce cards at scale. I think ultimately there's a limit though. Like the problem is there's probably a ceiling to what they can produce, no matter how much they invest. Which, is what it is. That's sort of the way things go sometimes.
And I would say also, how predictable is the market really? Because you're,
right. You don't want to flood the market.
No.
Like there is a weird sense of you don't want to just completely flood the market. But you do also have to try to manage your demand so that you don't essentially make a situation where people can't become fans of the thing because they can't acquire the thing.
Yeah.
And so what I will say, I'm trying to find the name of the company. Let's see. I gotta go back to the news. Excel Brands. That's it. It's a balancing act. And so what I can tell you is internationally, this is a problem too. In Japan, where it's a different, it's different printing and distribution arm, they have the same issues. I believe in Europe has the same problem. What it comes down to, so actually the email gets to it. AG touches on part of it. So as with many things during the pandemic, a speculator market popped up around Pokemon cards. I suspect the stuff he mentions about people streaming unboxing them. People unboxing blind boxes and stuff has been a YouTube thing for a really long time, at least a decade. It was a pretty common thing for, I'm not gonna say child influencers, although some of them were definitely children. There's one, I can't remember the name of the kid, but he did it for a long time, and they continued to infantilize him because it was necessary for the brand that he had created. So basically it was really weird and felt a little abusive and gross. But that was a thing for a bit. And then when people were stuck at home trying to generate additional revenue streams, a lot of people got into streaming. There are other trends in streaming that sort of align with that timeline and align with people essentially, I don't want to say side hustling, but maybe side hustling. Another thing in streaming that popped up is that's when the concept of VTubers exploded, because people were at home, and people who had never been comfortable, I'm going to be on camera. There's now a mechanism that they could do with devices they already owned to stream. And didn't have anything else to do. And, everybody who got into it, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them probably thought, maybe I'll make some money this way. But at a minimum, it's an opportunity to interact with people, because again, people were stuck at home. And so that existing format of unboxing blind boxes. I mean, people unboxing videos of things that weren't blind boxes. Remember, Nintendo famously scooped people by unboxing the Wii U before anybody else got a chance to. And I will tell you explicitly, I know of at least one website whose staff complained because that meant they weren't going to get the hits for it. Unboxing has been a thing for a while. But the rarity component adds, I don't like to call it gambling, although there are people who think even baseball cards are gambling, and I think gambling, you have to be able to convert it back into money, which you could indirectly, but this, it's not a pachinko parlor, which is a reference that no one's going to get. Pachinko parlors you can't gamble money, but a lot of times you get balls that you can trade for prizes, and then there's a pawn shop right next door that will buy those prizes. That's a real thing that happened in Japan for a while. Mm-hmm. So you can, the idea that, hey, this is a brand that people like, the content is easy as fuck to produce. I mean, it's literally point camera at thing, open them, show them off to camera, react accordingly. And it does reasonably well. If you have an audience, if you don't have an audience, you can open as many fucking Pokemon cards as you want. You're not going to build an audience that way. That's not really a mechanism to build audience. It's filler content if you already have one, certainly. And so you had this, you had these people who are coming into the streaming space, who don't necessarily have a long history with it, but they have a lot of time, and their audience also has a lot of time. There is a lot of time for people to watch content. And so it's a matter of like, what content can I plug into the machine? And so like unboxing Pokemon cards is part of it. At the same time, the supply lines for that kind of stuff got strained, but also, and this is what I think is important to note, it's not just the environmental long tail of the pandemic and the sort of the bang-on effects that happened. Although that is part of it, and there's part of that I haven't touched on yet. The Pokemon Company just hit another Pokemon spike. You know, Pokemon Sun and Moon caused a spike. Pokemon Go caused a spike. The brand managed better. Like, it hit the ground running and did some stuff better. Like, the brand's always there. It's always popular, but it definitely has waves in terms of its zeitgeistness. I feel like it hit one of those around the pandemic and just held on. And some of that might have been people looking for the nostalgia of it, sort of the same reason Animal Crossing was successful. It was, it was a thing to do in the pandemic. But also a lot of millennials would have had an emotional connection to Pokemon from their childhood that may have benefited from having the opportunity to experience it. A lot of millennials have children that they could pass it on to them. And so the brand probably got a little bit of a bang-on effect from that. The side hustle thing that I talked about, that's real, and it's a common trend when there's economic uncertainty. And Greg, you might have more constructs around this or knowledge here, but like when people don't feel confident in their economic situation, they tend to like look for ways to hustle and make cash. And boy, the last 6 years have been rough if you don't necessarily feel like your job is steady and you might need extra income, or you might need income at all. Like you may have lost your job and potentially just because of economic uncertainty. I would say the rise of AI and the projections of AI evangelists for like, it's going to take all the white collar jobs definitely creates this sense of unease in which people pursue means to make money. And some of them might have the ill-conceived idea that they can make money hustling and selling Pokemon cards. I have seen it firsthand. For a couple different people. I was at Barnes & Noble about a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, and they had the starter box for, I can't remember what series this was. This was the 151 set, I think. So they did a set for 151, and I think it was reissued art as well. And there were like some super rare new art of each Pokemon or something like that. That set was super popular. It did really, really well. And then there was an EX set that had lots of holofoils in it that did really super well. And those came out roughly the same time. Different Pokemon sets do differently well. So like not every new set that comes out is all killer. Some of them sell super well. Some of them don't sell as well. The one, not the 151 one. The other one was based around like the crystalline forms of the Pokemon in was that Scarlet and Violet? Where they're like giant crystal form thing. Those did super well. So I saw a bunch of kids who it was limit one only for the starter kit. They literally, cause I think everyone had a foil in it. They bought the whole kit. So like it's a play mat. It's 2 decks to play. It's the tokens for like tracking damage and stuff. All of it. Rule book. They ripped it open over in the cafe area of the Barnes & Noble where I was working. Went straight to the holofoil card. Determined if it was valuable or not. And literally threw everything else in the box away. All of it. All of the other cards. The entire playmat, the book, the tokens, the box, all of it. They were only interested in the holofoil card. And I don't think any of the 3 of them got a holofoil card worth getting. Those starter kits are not cheap. But again, it was like, well, I'm going to get it and I'm going to make money. No, you're not. You're going to lose money. You're going to lose money. Magic is also going through this. So it's not just a Pokemon thing. Magic the Gathering cards have also been really difficult to get a hold of. The Final Fantasy set they launched about 6 months ago, when it launched, was super difficult to get a hold of. It got better, because they just kept printing. Pokemon basically tries to do the same thing, just keep printing. I don't know if they're able to print their way out of it, because there is a frenzy there that's difficult to control. Does the Pokemon Company want there to be that frenzy? I think that's a difficult question that even they would struggle to. I think you could truth serum them, and they wouldn't be able to give you a straight answer to that question, because I don't know that they know. I think they appreciate that the frenzy that comes around the releases of new sets is good for brand awareness. I also feel like they probably are cognizant of the fact they don't really need that much help with brand awareness. It's fucking Pokemon. And so as a consequence, they probably don't like hearing from their retail partners where, like, the news story is Costco. Costco is holding back on delivering Pokemon cards from their warehouses to stores because the staff is concerned about their safety, which is a real thing that happened with the whatever that set was called. I can't remember now. The one that was all crystally. Or trying to solve the problem of how do you fill the purchase requests of your major players while also allowing local game shops that are good for your brand, because they run like play days where people actually get together and play Pokemon cards. Like, Best Buy's not running a fucking play day for Pokemon cards, but your local card shop probably is. How do they meet the needs of get Target the cards they want because it's fucking Target, versus, get One-Eyed Jocks down the street from me. They're 3 boxes of cards, so they have something on launch day. How do you do the mechanics there? How do you solve that? How do you solve that Gordian knot of these companies are important because they have scale, versus these individual players are important, but there's so many of them to track and they're not going to move scale. But they're important for brand health. Like, how do you thread that needle? And so the rarity kind of helps take the piss out of that situation, because ultimately they just go like, we sold them all. We did our best to get everybody what they need. But ultimately, they're not making money off the scam either. Like, the hustle doesn't help them. They're still selling them at manufacturer wholesale price. So it probably doesn't help them. Like, they're not, people are bidding on, like, at the peak of it, when, what was the name of that? It's going to drive me crazy if I can't think of it. Series. There we go. Let's look at it. People were buying boxes, the actual, like, box of booster packs, like what they have at the store. And they were buying, like, the whole box for 3 times retail price, which is stupid. I mean, it's just stupid. But they were doing it because that was what it cost to get them. And then they would do things like we talked about. They would sit there and open them. The prismatic evolutions, that was the one. That was the shit show. So now the Pokemon Company could stop making as many rare ones, stop putting it, or stop making cards as rare as they've been making them. So, like, yeah, you could still have big hollow foil cards, but we're going to put more of them out there in the ecosystem, so you don't have the $150 card. Like, because that's the thing. Some of these cards do go for those numbers. Is that a good value, or are you buying tulip bulbs? I don't know. They've been remarkably resilient. My sister, who collected Pokemon cards back when these were new, the original sets, around the pandemic, just found her card collecting book of them and sold them and made a shitload of money. And she didn't have anything that rare. But, like, so maybe there is some resiliency in the market. I don't fucking know. Like, I don't know. But Leafeon EX double rare is not that expensive at this point. Like, so maybe it's not crazy. Like, I'm trying to find one that's actually nuts. Yeah, like, these are all pretty affordable at this point. But at some point, people were freaked out that these cards are worth shitloads of cash. And so maybe the answer is just, hey, just print more. Just print more. Just print more cards. Problem solved. And maybe that's it. I don't know. I can't speak to that. But this is a collection of factors that have sort of, hurricanes don't form from one thing. They're a dust storm coming out of the Sahara, hitting warm currents with the right amount of low pressure along the path and hitting the right streams of air to get it to North America. Like, the hurricane is not one thing happened, it's 6 things happened. I would argue the Pokemon card situation is 10 things happening, 20 things happening. And as a consequence, you end up with, some cards being worth, a ton of money because of their incredible rarity and because there is ultimately a market looking to buy Glaceon EX for $350 for a piece of paper. It ain't me. I ain't that. But I guess they're out there? Question mark? Exclamation point? But I mean, it feels like they're trying. But again, Wizards of the Coast is having not to the same degree problem, but they're having a problem here too. I meant the aforementioned One-Eye Jacques around the time a Pokemon card set launched, and it wasn't crazy. I guess that set wasn't necessarily in the same kind of demand. So maybe they've just gotten better at figuring out what the demand curve is too, like what cards are gonna attract attention. I don't know. Like, it feels like they've gotten better at it. And that might be the biggest thing. It's just that the Pokemon Company has gotten better at it and they understand the marketplace around it, and they've started trying to take advantage of the knowledge that there is an influencer community that's doing like unboxings and shit. It's totally possible they've cracked the case, for lack of a better word, and now they can sort of feed these into the mill every time to get the pops they want. I don't know. Does anybody else have? I said a lot there. I would love for somebody else to have something to say. Can I sell you a Mega Meganium card?
I mean, what is the state of the collector market now? I mean, is it still like, I mean, I see that like Logan Paul sold a Pokemon card for 16 million or something. Is Bejeweled Pokemon card? I mean, come on, man. If this is where we're at, I'm out. Like, I'm never even coming.
That was like a 90. So the company that used to rate like new video games in box and shit, they went bankrupt because their entire business model was a scam.
We talked about this
you didn't hear
repeatedly.
We did. We talked about it at the time, saying their business model was a scam, and then they went bankrupt, proving their business model was a scam. But he had a card that was like an original Pikachu from the original set that is worth a ton of money. I mean, a ton, not 16 million. And it was rated super pristine. And so he bought it for a ridiculous sum of money, well over its actual value. I would assume as a branding exercise. I paid $1 million for this card. Because I'm Logan Paul and I can fucking do that. He turned it into a pendant he wore around his neck off a chain. Because he's a douchebag. And, like, that was the whole gimmick. I've got this protected, sealed Pikachu. It's worth $1 million hanging around my neck because I've got cash. Money can't buy taste, as the expression goes. He made that card literally his iconography insofar as he could without running afoul of the Pokemon Company's trademarks. Like, it was effectively his mascot. It was his icon. It was shorthand for Logan Paul, essentially. And so he, and I'm going to use every air quote that has ever been conceived of, sold it for some outrageous margin. And like 16 million on a $1 million purchase or something asinine like that. Like a 16,000% return or some dog shit. Now, the $1 million purchase price was not legit. He may have paid that, but like it was to me, it always felt like it was a juiced number so he could say it was $1 million card. I'm going to go ahead and say, go find me a marketplace where that card sells for $16 million. I'll wait. You won't find it. Is that card worth more because it was the Logan Paul card? Probably. But because he, for whatever reason, invested his brand energy in this totem to power it up with the Logan Paul aura, I guess, for lack of a good word, not even a better word. So that does increase the material value of the card just because the card became infamous because it was the Logan Paul card. But he sold it for a price that indicates to me that it was sold as a branding exercise. Like if you track down the buyer, it's probably an LLC based in, I don't know, Monaco, Andorra, Bermuda. Like this is somewhere in the Caribbean, like based somewhere where the financial transactions become murky very quickly. Because for the Logan Paul brand, he was able to say, I bought this thing for $1 million and sold it for $16 million after associating this totem with himself. And I am not projecting that he would say that. Because, John, as you can attest, 2 weeks ago, that was literally the promo he cut on Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what he does.
In his defense, this was not a planned promo. His entire faction is out injured right before WrestleMania. Like, what a fucking cursed-ass faction that is.
Mm-hmm.
Braun's out, Bronson's out. The two people the faction was created to promote are out. So, they basically like, all right, you're next up, I guess. Here's a microphone and go out there and kill 5 minutes. And he talked about how he's a financial genius making a $15 million profit on this card. So what I am saying is he probably didn't make a $15 million profit. But the Pokemon Company is more than happy for that to be part of the narrative because it doesn't involve people not being able to acquire cards they're trying to sell right now. This was an old card. But it puts their brand back in the news. It makes how am I going to word this? It makes the idea of the price of what are ultimately, I want to say the Pokemon booster packs are really small, like 7. Versus, I want to say like Lorcana's 15. Pokemon trading card booster packs are really small. They are, it makes the economic proposition of 7 pieces of paper seem more realistic or less ridiculous when they run for like $7. But no, I don't think the Pokemon Company is trying to create a deliberate sense of extreme urgency. I think their business partners, the trading card stores and the major retailers, do like the urgency to some degree, but they don't like the effect it has in the long term. I think the other thing that's happened, though, is you're seeing retailers who don't normally buy Pokemon cards sell them. Or we don't normally sell Pokemon cards, sell them. As an example, I have seen Pokemon cards, booster packs, on sale at a home improvement store. And not like a local home improvement store, like a national chain. One of the big two. Which doesn't make a goddamn fucking sense. But Lowe's had like, you know how a lot of stores have like the candy section? Like the grocery stores, like right at the register? Lowe's has started doing that for years now. They have a candy section right at the register. Like, man, you're hungry, right? Why don't you take this snack? I noticed they started doing it for trading cards like 6 months ago. It's a thing, I guess. But that doesn't make their Pokemon Company's logistics challenges any easier. Because now you've got more big national support or sellers who want their fucking stock. But also, the worst thing that can happen in a trading card biz is you have a bunch of shit left over. What you want to have happen is you want to produce exactly as many packs as you would be able to sell, not one more, not one less. And so it is a fine line of how many of these you're going to make, because not every set that the Pokemon Company's released since the pandemic has been the same kind of like riot-inducing success. So there is a formula somewhere of success here. And maybe it's random. Maybe it's partially random. Maybe what makes them appeal isn't necessarily a measurable quantity, or it is not necessarily static. So like the thing that makes this set appeal over the previous set is different. And as a consequence, trying to go back to that well doesn't get the results you want. Could they do a set that's like 250? It's 252, right? With gold and silver? Because Celebi is like number 252, I think. Could they do a 252 set and have the same success as 151? Probably not. 151 probably had its Gen 1ers success rate. I think it also benefited from the fact that Prismatic Evolutions was going on and 151 was comparatively more available. So yeah, there's a lot in play here. I don't necessarily blame Pokemon Company for the current situation, although I'm not a Pokemon card buyer, so that's not necessarily something I would do anyway. I think they're making major investments to try to make the situation better. I could say in places where they control the retail outlets, like the Pokemon stores, they are very, like, you are able to buy cards there, and it's not because they've self-dealed to make sure that they always have a healthy supply, although I'm sure they've done some of that. It's because they're being very organized about enforcing limitations on what people are allowed to buy, when they're allowed to buy them, and controlling the flow of the inventory so more people get a chance to buy them rather than unloading them as fast as they can. Which is what some retailers do. They're just like, yeah, you can buy as many cards as you fucking want. We don't care. Because ultimately, if you're a retailer, your job is to not have something sit on the shelf. So if you have somebody who's going to come in and buy your entire box, your entire fucking shipment on day one, I mean, the only reason you would say no is you want to make your other customers happy. Like, there's no good reason to say no. There's no legitimate reason to say no. If I'm a Target manager and somebody comes in with a stack of cash saying, I'll buy your entire shipment of the new, what's the next Pokemon card set? I don't know what it is. So let's see if I can find it. Mega Evolution's Perfect Order. If you're a manager, it's probably in your benefit to just take that cash and give them all the cards. Because you don't have to worry about it anymore. You just put up a sign that says, we don't have any Perfect Order cards. And you're done. But your corporate masters probably don't want you to do that because they want to create more customers. They want to get more people in the store. They want people to feel like, the store took care of them, for lack of a better word, which is ridiculous because you're giving them $8 for 7 pieces of very small paper. But you get the idea. Like, they want the transaction because the transaction is good for the emotional business of being a retailer, which is not an insignificant component of being a successful retail organization. You can ask Target right now, where they have completely trampled over whatever emotional intelligence they had been exhibiting over the previous, let's say, 4.5 years. And have, in some degree, the other factors. I think that degree to which that was the driving factor in their decreasing sales is probably overstated. But to some degree, were punished for it economically by their consumers. I also think they've sort of lost a step on trying to be trend forward brand. Like, it felt like their idea was that they could be a little bit more fashion forward than like a Walmart, but still be competitive on price. And I feel like they've probably lost that energy a little bit. So, the answer is there's a lot in play, and I'm tired of talking, and I would like somebody else to talk. John, what's the state of your Pokemon card collection?
I'm about as far from Pokemon card collecting as you can possibly get.
But what if you could make money doing it?
I don't know.
What if we could get John Lindemann unboxing videos?
Like, I can't look at something like that and do it for strictly monetary reasons, because it's just, I look at it like I have friends that it's not about the money, it's about the hustle. Well, but that's the same thing, right? Like, I have friends that they'll flip consoles, right? You know what I mean? Like,
I've done that,
and I really can't do that either. I just don't.
I've never done that for a new console. I have done that for old used consoles where I'm like, that is underpriced. I can buy and sell that.
Yeah, this is purely market scarcity. Let me capitalize on it and make a quick buck. And it's just not my mentality. So,
There's a word for
but
this.
maybe that's better. Maybe I should actually be the Pokemon trading card king because I just have it would just
there's
be
no
money.
Emotional attachment.
There'd be no emotional attachment. So
arbitrage. That's the word I wanted.
Yeah.
There is a weird thing where the cards, the packs, are more valuable before they're opened because they're an unknown quantity.
Yeah.
It is possible that the pack might have something in them that makes them more valuable than an unopened pack. But that is statistically less likely because sometimes if you have a really crazy odd gambling card, hang with me here, I'm going somewhere. Like you pick a prop bet where like you pick an over under for a team in the NFL. It's like the Vegas is like, this team's going to be fucking dog shit. Over under for this team is 5, which is to say 5 wins. So if they win 5 or more games and you pick the over, congratulations, you win. They get a lot of tries to get 5 games. If you can't get 5 games, you're fucking terrible. So let's do a different one. Let's say let's say you pick the under on 5. And Vegas had to juice the under a lot to get people to take it because they want people to take both directions. And maybe you even hedged it. You hedged it down. You hedged them to 3. If it's getting close to you might pull this shit off, they might offer to buy you out of your bid. Like, hey, we'll buy you out. You're not going to get everything, but you're going to walk away with some money. Or you could walk away with no money. But there's a chance you could walk away with a shitload of money because they're just playing statistical odds. They're saying it's better for us to give you some money now and avoid the risk of you making a bank. The Pokemon card thing has a similar construct of like, it is possible that there will be a card in this pack that is worth $1 gazillion. But the majority of packs, the full totality of their contents, will be worth less than the arbitraged value of an unopened pack. So like, if it's retail 7, the secondary market price might be, let's say it's 12. I don't know the exact numbers. The overwhelming majority of packs will be under that number. If you were to essentially disassemble them and sell them for parts. But there's enough of them out there that would be so statistically over that number that the median says you should always sell the packs and not open them. But the mean average of the value says you should open them because like, oh, well, there's a chance. So there are outlets who will only sell Pokemon packs and then they make you open them before they'll sell them to you because that's their way of trying to cut down on arbitrage sales. Because once you've opened them, their value is gone. I mean, unless there's something in the card, but then you're selling a known quantity. You're selling a card. And people who are just doing it for the hustle aren't going to take that gamble. When they buy a booster pack, they know that they're placing a bet that Vegas will always buy them out of above their lay-in bet. They know they'll be able to sell these packs for more than they bought them for. When they're open, that odd has pretty much been erased. So that is one way that outlets try to do it. Try to decrease that. Pokemon stores don't do that. They let you open them wherever the fuck you want, but they'll only sell you 2. Which is a pretty heavy restriction. Like, they could certainly sell you all of them. But yeah, it's a weird, like, philosophical thing where you have hustle culture running into, Pokemon hitting a zeitgeist moment, hitting the fact there's now easily 2, and it may be approaching 3 generations of people who were major fans of the franchise.
Yeah, that's what amazes me more than anything is the fact that we're still sitting here. I mean, the game came out in the US, 96? 98?
Ish.
Yeah.
98, I think.
I think it was 96 in Japan, 98 here.
Yeah.
And
30 years.
Yeah. And this is still going on. Like, this is, like, still, like, Furby level shit.
Yeah, like I remember when Pokemon Trading Card first came out, and it was a goddamn shit show.
Mm-hmm.
20-something years ago. It does feel like it retreated back, but I think trading cards in general have had their moment. I think blind boxes have likewise had a moment. And so it's a lot of factors sort of like metastasizing into this sort of danger to the body that the Pokemon cards have effectively become. It's weird. Like it is weird when you sit there and like check off. You're right. It's like it's been 30 fucking years.
Yeah. Well, and I think too. Again, I blame the internet because the internet has allowed this whole thing to exist. Right. This entire culture to proliferate.
It's multiple ways. So like, yeah, the idea of like the blind box culture is fundamentally an internet invention. But also the idea of like, I can just look up how much this card is worth is fundamentally an internet concept as well.
Yeah. I mean, this happens as well in other games. I mean, you see this with like, certain streamers, for any of these games that have, card packs,
Oh yeah.
They're saying, I mean, EAFC, their games. I mean, they have people on there. They'll, I mean, I was reading that, to start off, kind of like just like a side story, but some of the big streamers that before the game launches, they're buying $10,000 worth of card packs, and that is just so they can go on their stream and open them. So it's that entire culture, the whole reaction culture that now exists has driven this.
So internet created the carnival barkers around these things.
Yeah.
They have created a place for the community who likes these cards to sort of congregate. They've created the marketplace because that's a lot of places where like I'm going to sell these booster packs I bought exist.
Yeah, and it's created the hyper awareness of the market. Why do you think you have things like Kalshi and Poly Market? That's 100%. That is purely just an internet speculation culture driven.
Yeah.
Thing.
Oh yeah, like this goes down to the Diamond Hand stuff of the 2020. Like all of this shit's related. It's just how the body of humanity has digested or its immune system. I guess immune system is a better reaction. How its immune system has responded, and the Pokemon card stuff it has not responded to yet, and it's probably, there's probably a dozen factors that we're not even thinking of. But fundamentally, it's a mix of the internet creates the market, is the market, advertises the market, and also, like, sets the price for the market. And the sites that price cards have no interest in showing you the most reasonable number. They're going to show you the biggest number because that's the most interesting way to present that information. That's the way it's going to most make somebody who's looking up your Tangela card. They're looking up the value of this Tangela card more than likely because they have it. And they want to know what it's worth because they feel like it's probably valuable. And so these sort of like market price setters also benefit from number go up. So there's like every player in the marketplace except maybe Pokemon Company is fine seeing the number go up because we know there are retailers who have sold packs for more than their worth, more than their list value. So it's basically just the frontline workers who have to stock this shit and just get asked all the time, Pokemon cards? And the people who actually want to buy them to play the game. Who get hurt by that. But fundamentally, like, Pokemon Company's trying. It's just, they have brought bailing buckets to try to bail out a tsunami. And that doesn't work. So, good luck. Alright, let's do the next email. I did not want to talk that long, but there's actually a lot to say there. Holy shit. John, would you read the next email?
Sure. Definitely not Meowth wearing a vest and bangles wrote, "Hello, hello.
Huh.
You've rubbed my magic dev kit, so here I am. It's me, the Cutting Room Genie. A whole lot's been getting released into the wild over the past decade or so, huh? Everything from concept art and unused sprites and artwork to entire games, even fair and square in rare cases. You can play whichever version of Star Fox 2 tickles your fancy. I'm not going to name drop my favorite Picross game. You can figure it out from the context. But what I am going to do is grant you one retroactive release. I can go back in time exactly once and set the wheels in motion to get an unreleased game across the finish line. Think carefully, though, because this will obviously have ramifications on the franchise and or developer. They could be good, Mega Man Universe, or they could be bad, Mega Man Legends 3. I couldn't give less of a shit, though, because you freed me, and I owe you a solid per Genie protocol. I won't even hold it against you when you don't choose Senran Kagura 7. But maybe the future will feel like changing."
They made 6 of those fucking things? Holy fuck. Holy fuck. That's crazy. That's crazy, John. They made 6 Senran Kagura games. That's so many jiggly ninjas.
6 too many, my friend.
6 or 10 too few. I don't know, man. Do you want to make Zach Miller sad?
I think he has plenty of other things to make him happy scattered around his house, I would think.
I'm sure he's a huge fan of that game. Well, yeah, he does. We somebody let him post the article that time.
Yeah.
All right, so canceled game that you wish came out. Understanding that there could be some like, oh, you stepped on a dragonfly in 16 million BC and now you've broken evolution outcomes here. I'm still thinking about what answer I want.
Well, given the allusion to the Chrono series, I'm going to say a little bit obvious, but I can't remember how much was known back then, but it was talked about somewhat on the internet, the Chrono Break project, which
yes,
I feel like the developers essentially ended up on that, got repurposed into doing Final Fantasy XI, the first time that Final Fantasy did an MMO. So presumably in this, the scenario you talked about with the, how does it change? It might, maybe if that exists, it kills Final Fantasy XI. So for people who are, very fond of that, perhaps would the trade-off be worth it? I've no idea, but certainly from my point of view, it's an interesting what if, just because obviously it didn't come to fruition and nothing has really come to fruition since in that vein.
Yeah. I feel like I want it to be on the N64 because the N64 fucking needed help. Like a lot of the stuff on GameCube that got canceled was ultimately just multi-platform versions of games that
was it Dead Phoenix or whatever from the Capcom 5 that never emerged.
Well named.
Yes,
well named.
Yes. Even as a phoenix, it can't come back. This one, it's dead. It's
the deadest phoenix.
The Monty Python parrot dead.
Yeah, N64 feels like a really good place. DS, I bet there's stuff that would have been
well, of course, Dread for so long, that was
yeah,
Metroid Dread was, and I know Star Fox 2 of course was alluded to, was referenced, in the email explicitly there, so that's an example of some of these things that you could have had in your mind for many, many years, and then all of a sudden it happens. Coming up, we've got the Dragon Hopper and Zero Race as Virtual Boy games are gonna be happening on that service. So sometimes these things do just happen. Dread is a little bit different because I guess you could kind of still say, well, what would it have been like if it had been, more like it's, I guess if you want to say it's in originally intended form, right, on DS. I mean, we did mention this a little bit when the Switch game Metroid Dread came out a few years ago. Certainly, I would say those Emmy sections and stuff kind of feel like they might have been conceived with the notion of the map being visible on a lower screen, like especially when they get sort of bigger and more complex, those kind of mazes where you've got to kind of, avoid the enemy, maybe kite it around a little bit so you can get to somewhere, and then, you get acquire the power that you can use to destroy it and then move on. Might have been the kind of, it's more reasonable to assume that the player can do this when they've got a layout of the area on a nice size screen immediately below the main screen, right? And that may have been almost the seed of like that whole idea. And then when you actually do it, you don't have that anymore. No. All those years of dual screen hardware releases had passed at that point. So you could still say it would be interesting. What would it be like as like a honest to God 2D pixel art game on DS with the second screen? But surely there must be more urgent ones than things that actually did get adapted into a game, even if it was like many, many years later.
Yeah, like I'm going through this list of games that just never made it. And it there is a weird sense of like, so many of these just didn't make it to Nintendo systems.
Yeah.
Or they're Nintendo's own games that just went somewhere else. Mm-hmm. Like they got shit canned and made their way to the next system.
Yeah, I did not know that Nintendo was planning a sequel to Wind Waker, and instead that became Phantom Hourglass eventually, and they opted to do Twilight Princess instead because of Wind Waker's relatively low sales.
I mean, I remember them saying things about the Wind Waker engine and stuff like that, after when talking about the development for Twilight Princess. I've no idea how far they got down the line of, we will do this graphic style again before they sort of decided, no, we've got to do our sort of best Ocarina of Time / Jackson Lord of the Rings impression hybrid thing that they could do.
I mean, they did reuse the engine. Like,
exactly. No, they did the end. Even though the aesthetic changed, they still ended up reusing the engine. But that's what I mean. Is just like, the engine would have carried over anyway. So I don't know how far meaningfully they got down the road of keeping the aesthetic. And presumably things that would have gone with that. But yeah, it did come back with Phantom Hourglass anyway.
There was a lot of the stuff that's most interesting. I don't know that it ever really was in development. Like it's, it's things we hear about later. Like, oh yeah, we made a pitch for something. It's like, well, that game didn't get canceled. It never got greenlit.
But isn't that kind of some of the smoke around like Kid Icarus for years was that developers had pitched Nintendo on doing a Kid Icarus, but they hadn't said yes.
They were essentially playing IGN's Matt Casamassina about how far along the pitch had gotten, and Which was smart.
The fact is, those things do end up going somewhere. Sometimes it's not as if these things don't bear fruit. I mean, the aforementioned Metroid Dread, obviously its forerunner was the Samus Returns, remake of Metroid 2. And I think that's basically, somewhat the result of Mercury Steam developers of Castlevania, Lords of Shadow, pitching Nintendo on doing a Metroid game and, getting there eventually. I get, to some extent, perhaps with the remake of Metroid 2 kind of being the proving ground for doing a bigger, and more original, if not entirely original, because as we said, it seems like a certain amount of conceptual work had been done on Metroid Dread years earlier, game a little bit down the line.
Yeah, Yute Saito tried to put Seaman on everything, because Yute Saito's a crazy person. But those were all just pitches. One I've actually played, although I don't actually want it, I just want John to have played it, was the 3DS demo of DJ Hero. Because that demo was I describe it and people think I'm making it up. And I'm like, no, I played it. It's real. It was a real thing. I played it off a kiosk while a woman tethered to other DSs stood next to her.
If that had like made it to market, would they have done something that was fundamentally similar to like the Circle Pad Pro, but like way bigger?
I want to say that was the idea, yes. Which,
it would connect through the IR sensor, presumably, but like have it be this like big food tray for the
it was conceptually very weird.
So there's some crazy off the ball ones. I think Super NES is very interesting just because it was like the break between the Super NES and N64 was really interesting. So,
well, I mean, there's a few things there that, I guess in public facing, like what would Secret of Mana have been like if it had actually been for the CD? If the PlayStation, the Super Nintendo CD had actually happened and they could have, made it the way that it was intended. I think it was pretty explicit. Like this was like they thought that was going to be a game for the CD format and, quite deep into its development, like, well, stuff's gonna have to go, and so it could have been, what is that game like? And then that leads on to things like what's Final Fantasy VII like on N64 if they hadn't sort of broken away there. And what's Mother 3 like on N64? Because there was a certain amount of footage of that. They got a certain amount of the way, and again, it was adapted into the GBA game that came out in 2006, but presumably it would have been significantly different, even if the core scenario that Itoi had written would have stayed the same.
Yeah, and there's a couple things like THQ wanted to create an adaptation of Akira and bring that to Super Nintendo.
God, that'd have been terrible.
Yeah, it would have been terrible. Also, Blaster Master 2 was supposed to come to Super Nintendo, but only came to Sega Genesis.
Yeah, it was not very well thought of, was it, that one?
Yeah.
It sort of like had some of that dodgy European computer sequel vibes, but just on the Mega Drive instead of on the European computers.
I'm trying to think about games that were talked about a lot that didn't come out.
Yeah.
Like the Mega Man Legends 3 that was mentioned was Capcom. Capcom made a demo of this game that was not part of the game that they intended to sell. They intended to sell this demo, which featured content not from the game, but in-game engine.
I guess that's a little bit like the Metro Prime Hunters thing, like the first Hunt demo or whatever, which was in with the Nintendo DS at launch. And that was in November of 2004. Hunters itself doesn't launch until midway through 2006. So, I mean, I've never played that first Hunt demo, but I've got to think it's substantially different from anything in in the final game. It's not really content just in the game.
It's not good. I played it. Like it feels bad. But they let like somebody in the media play that demo and then canceled it like the next day. The person didn't even get to write their impressions up. It's amazing. So like only one person outside Capcom ever played it.
I mean, Final Fantasy VII is a big one here.
Yeah.
This is just interesting though. Here they said that the original work on the game began on the Super NES in 1994, but that group was pulled off to finish Chrono Trigger for 95.
Right.
When they returned to the project, they put together early plans on what the game could look like on the Nintendo 64 and the 64DD, and they did tests on the N64 hardware, but no work was really finished, and the work was scrapped, and they moved on to developing for the PlayStation, where the game released in 1997. That's really interesting.
No, it's a very hard line of the market in terms of like there's a ton of Square stuff in like 96.
Yep.
And then it just stops. It's like it was not like they had one toe in one kind of pool and were hedging their bets or whatever. It was just they were kind of all in on the Super Nintendo until they weren't, and then they were all in on the PlayStation for the rest of the 90s.
Yeah. So I was thinking they're like, okay, Ghost would have been in StarCraft Ghost.
Mm-hmm. That's like one of those legendary ones.
Yeah. I wanted to name Blizzard, but personally I would have been I wanted to create the most chaos possible. And so
Blizzard already did that.
No, but like have them actually release Warcraft Adventure which was like this point-and-click game that they were working on, and that was kind of stuck in development hell for a while because they didn't know how to make an adventure game. Basically, like they were getting their animation, their hand-drawn animation from like a Russian studio, and like communication was poor, and like there was delay between. Like they wanted to iterate a lot, and like the animation couldn't really do that, right? They weren't used to that kind of workflow. So anyway, they canceled it, and I think a lot of the story ended up being put into Warcraft 3 and World of Warcraft. And so, like if you release Warcraft Adventures, like does that delay, the advent of World of Warcraft, and like what's the effect downstream, like, is there, like, do they not get bought by Activision? Do they, like, is there not like this big rush to make, the next big MMO at that time? So yeah, I just want to really, like release all the fucking butterflies to create so many tornadoes, just all at once. But StarCraft Ghost is probably more relevant to us because of the GameCube. Would that have been anything other than a reskinned Metal Arms glitch in the system?
I would be thrilled because Metal Arms glitch in the system is good. Yeah.
But yeah, like would that just have been like, okay, now instead of a robot, it's a woman and she's got psychic powers in addition to a disc launcher or whatever. Because they wouldn't replace, like, they wouldn't give her a gun. They would just, like, they would be lazy enough to just replace, like, reskin the robot, and keep the weapon.
I have two. Because I thought Ghost would be interesting, but that's not really my pick. One is, and again, this is one of those ones where, like, did it actually get underway and get canceled, or was it, like, somebody pitching really hard? Before they went on to make excellent game Lair that John speaks so highly of, Factor 5 was trying to produce a compilation of the 3 original trilogy Star Wars games they made on Wii.
Yep.
And that would have been interesting because that franchise just fucking died after the second GameCube game, which sucks because they were really fun. All 4 of those games are interesting in their own way. I think the third one, in an attempt to be different, added a bunch of gameplay styles that don't work. Star Fox Assault has that same problem where it's like, here's wing walking for some reason.
Well, and presumably it's another one of these things where it's like trying to make it more long form, because it's like, well, people getting through these games too quickly, and it's, they get traded in, or it hurts the review scores or whatever. And we got those types of games that are just about, whether it be aerial combat, space combat, whatever, they don't tend to be that easy to string out into, something that goes on and on and on. And so I guess that was one attempt to try and bridge that gap, and a few different examples seem to struggle with it.
I think Mega Man Legends 3 would have been interesting only because I would have wanted to have played it, but the one that would really jump out at me kind of happened. And so it is the Ace Attorney games that never left Japan, because we had 3 of them basically in a row where that was true. If you don't count Phoenix versus Wright. We had the 2 Daigakuten Saibon games, the Great Ace Attorney. We didn't get either of those. And there was the second Edgeworth game, which we didn't get. And Capcom's US social media rep at the time's like, look, we'd love to bring it over, but the math just doesn't math, boys. Like, here's how much we sold of the first one, and we'd need to sell like 60% more than that to make money doing this again. And we know the sales don't go up on sequels. I was like, okay.
Well, and the DS market got progressively tougher as well, just to add another sort of likely decay effect on top of just the sequel one.
It got tougher for 2 reasons. 1, piracy had become rampant. And 2, the market had started to soften, just even if piracy wasn't there. So, like,
It'd been on the market a while at that point, right? So,
and it had become trivially easy to buy a flash cart online and just put ROMs on there and be done. Did not even require you to hack your system. So that was having a downward pressure on DS sales, like openly. 3DS, Nintendo touted the difficulty in trying to break it open early on, and they were mostly successful at that. Eventually, it was busted open, but the goal of those things isn't to keep it locked up forever; it's to keep it locked up through the heart of the system sales. And they seems like they were largely successful. You can't just like walk into an independent game store and buy 3DS flash carts at the peak of the 3DS's powers. You absolutely could do that in the DS era. But it kind of made the franchise feel dead because it was just like suddenly it's gone. And it wasn't until Great Ace Attorney came out that was like, oh, okay, not Great Ace Attorney, Phoenix versus Wright. They're like, oh, we're getting something. But at the same time, I'm like, well, we're getting it because Phoenix Wright. We're getting it because Capcom. And then we finally got all three of those games. We got the Great Ace Attorney Collection, which I played and I adore. It's awesome. And then I want to say we got both of the Edgeworth games bundled together. Was that what that bundle was?
Yeah, or was the collection recently.
Yeah, which I have on my wish list because it's Capcom and it will go on sale eventually. So that's kind of a cheat for me to pick those, but I would have liked to have seen them happen in the moment. Because that feels, but then again, maybe the reason Capcom's team went and made that deal with Level 5 was because they saw that their games weren't escaping Japan, and maybe that motivated them to find some other way to get the character out there. And like, we'll strap Phoenix Wright to fucking Professor Layton and see what happens. So maybe those games don't happen if that franchise is still bopping along. Or their team that makes it can't tear themselves away to produce this weird hybrid. They've got to go heads down to finish the next one of these because the last one did well. See, I don't know. But I think those are my answers.
I'm surprised, James, that you did not name the game that you're on Wikipedia for.
Oh?
Yeah?
What game is that?
There's this game called 90s Super GP. Formerly known as 90s Arcade Racer.
90s Arcade Racer. Am I quoted on the Wikipedia article?
You are. So this was this game that was supposed to come out on, was it Wii U or Switch? I guess
no.
I need to look at the date.
I think it was Wii U.
It was the Switch. It was supposed to come out on Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, and Windows. It was like a one-man team, Greek designer Antonis Pelikanos of Pelican 13, and co-developed and published by Nicholas, and funded in Kickstarter for a very, small sum of £16,000 in 2013. And then it entered development hell, and it never came out. So that's fun. And so reception, under the reception heading, like in the second paragraph, in 2019,
it doesn't just say still waiting under reception.
Right. No, well,
please tell me someone's got that for the 3DS version of Mighty Number 9 or whatever. Right?
I think that did actually officially get cancelled at some point.
Yeah, quite recently. Was it recently? I forget. Concept doesn't even exist anymore. It just folded officially.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so in 2019, James Jones and Nintendo World Report criticized Nicholas for an April Fool's joke in which they tweeted that 90s Super GP was coming, while subsequently claiming the tweet may not be true. He wrote that it was, quote-unquote, incredibly tone-deaf, and, quote-unquote, far too little and much too late, urging them to be accountable to backers. So
people had backed that game. Like, people gave them money, and then it got picked up by a publisher, which they announced while it was still open. That's the thing. Like, if a publisher picked it up after it closed, you can say, well, the whole thing with Kickstarter is the project may never actually happen. Now, that's not technically true. Technically, the TOS for Kickstarter says, like, no, you're supposed to make this happen. But there's at least some wiggle room there. But Nicholas announced they were funding the project during the campaign, which would give a backer reasonable expectation that they're not actually funding to make the game happen. They're basically just digitally pre-ordering ahead of time.
Yeah.
But, the guy who made it left the project and basically said, like, Nicholas took everything, man. And went and made the Takeover, which another game we've talked about on this show.
Yeah, no, I didn't realize it was the same guy, but yeah, I'm reading this right now.
Yeah.
I
If
really
anybody
wanted
asks,
90s Arcade Racer. I never backed anything on Kickstarter, but it looked really good. People were excited.
It did look really good. I backed in the video game space, I backed one thing, and it was Shovel Knight, because everybody backed Shovel Knight. Shovel Knight, so many people backed Shovel Knight that it made the Shovel Knight's team imperiled.
Yeah.
So
some say they never recovered, actually.
I think, well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's just like, on the one hand, it's like, they finally escaped sort of Shovel Knight jail, and yet Mina the Hollower seems to have become its own sort of prison. Unfortunately, it seems to have gone on a lot longer than was initially sort of conceived of, apparently.
Sisyphus got the ball up the hill only to find there was another hill and a bigger ball.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch! Anybody else got one, or did we get through everybody? I lost track.
I mean, you could always say Cabbage. That old one.
I often do.
A pet-raising breeding game in development by Nintendo employee Shigesato Itoi with Shigeru Miyamoto for the 64DD.
Famed stationary creator Shigesato Itoi's game.
Yep, just because it would have been probably batshit crazy.
I mean, the nice part about Cabbage is that Itoi might have finally made a good game. So that'd have been nice.
There you go.
Didn't he do isn't there a fishing game? How good is it? I don't know.
Oh, that's right. The Shigesato Itoi's fishing game is supposed to be weird and kind of enjoyable. That's a Satellaview game. Because of course it is. I would have... Do I want Satellaview to have not been cancelled outside Japan?
Oh, well, there's no, all that sort of stuff they had going on with distribution in Japan, I guess, just wouldn't have really worked, kind of elsewhere, when the Famicom disc system with the rewritable cartridges and the Nintendo Power thing, so rewritable discs in the case of the disc system, but then they had rewritable cartridges for the Super Famicom with this Nintendo Power, and I think the Game Boy as well, right? Like, had some of the, the kind of infrastructure for all that stuff was just presumably a lot easier to kind of make it work in Japan. I assume Satellaview was somewhat similar, right? It's just like, I guess, you did have things like Sega Power or whatever, the online thing with the Mega Drive / Genesis, like that did exist in America, right?
I think the challenge is that St. Giga ran so much of the infrastructure that made the Satellaview work that Nintendo would have had to have found a non-St. Giga partner to do that outside of Japan. And I don't think there was any players in the satellite background music space who had the satellite capacity to host these video games on a schedule, and B, were cracked enough to actually try it. Because that's the other thing, like, this is a terrible idea. I cannot fathom what...
I assume there was just something about the specific practicality, even that's not really quite the most appropriate word, but you know what I mean? Like the idea that you could pull it off in Japan, like some of these things, is almost probably at the heart of how they were conceived and why they were followed through upon. And as we've said many times, Nintendo will sort of follow through on things by putting them out in Japan, even if it's kind of something that's run its course and it's not really ready, or doesn't prove to be suitable. Idea. But it's like, you know what, like some notion of owing it to the people involved or whatever it is, even if it might not be the most economically sensible decision, we'll follow through, we'll put it out, we'll put it into the marketplace. It can kind of exist in some way. The biggest surprise to me is that Virtual Boy got out of Japan. It seems like that is exactly what that should have been, if at all. It should have just been in Japan.
I think because there were so many Western publishers who were kind of on board.
I guess so. I guess they just got enough, kind of the things that you would want if you were going to launch it in the US, sort of in play, that it kind of made it seem like maybe it's worth doing. But it seems so much like a 64 DD and all these other things that I've had over the years where it's kind of like, well, we can just about kind of get away with doing this on a relatively modest scale domestically. Anything else, forget it. It really does seem like it was like squarely in that space, one of those things, and yet somehow they actually bothered to launch it in America, which I assume was logistically much more complex and expensive. So
absolute lunacy.
That is, you could argue to launch it at all was a bit crackers. But to launch it outside of Japan was like an order of magnitude more crackers.
We have embraced the chaos.
But yeah, if you look at for the far-reaching sort of consequences, I mean, the Final Fantasy VII, if it could happen on N64 thing, is tough to beat because, I mean, could Sakaguchi have kept working on Final Fantasy for much longer? Because maybe if you don't go so much in the direction of, we do like cinematic cutscenes on CDs, you don't get to the Spirits Within. And like that might affect how the merger with Enix plays out and all sorts of stuff. I mean, it's just like enormous ramifications if you change that.
Yeah, that one's a mess. Part of me would like to have seen if the 64DD had been supported and Nintendo had been able to get it into the marketplace and successful. It's as successful as something an N64 could be. So Teleview is only more interesting because Nintendo invested in St. Giga, put people on the St. Giga board. St. Giga canceled a lot of their in-house programming for satellite capacity to broadcast these games, and then Nintendo withdrew from the St. Giga board and basically killed the product. What a great business partner. Just a fuck you all around. But the DD, like, ultimately, there are things that the N64 struggled to do that could have been done well on them. John, imagine an Aki engine game with 64DD capacity to add as many fucking wrestlers as you want.
Yeah, that would have been great.
Yeah, like, granted, you're talking about, like, 1999, 2000 WCW.
Yeah.
So, you're not gonna want the characters.
Most of them, no.
But they're gonna be there. I mean, you can play as Positively Canyon, John. Congratulations.
Rest in peace, Chris Canyon.
Or was it Mike Awesome? They turned into that 70s guy.
Yep, they did. They sure did.
With the bus.
Yep.
Hey kids, don't stage a wrestling match on top of a school bus, John. Why is that?
You fall off.
Yeah, because the top is rounded.
Yeah.
Don't do that. That's very stupid, especially if you're the fucking insane clown posse. This is what happened.
Oh, those are dark days. One that I forgot about was Robotech Crystal Dreams. That one, that was vaporware for sure. And as a Robotech fan, I was looking forward to that one for N64. But
did you ever play the GameCube game?
I don't think I did. No.
You should try to find a way to play that through only legal means.
Well, the thing is, with just Robotech period, there's enough there where you could make a really cool game, but the Robotech games
it's an interesting game.
It's
not good, but it's interesting.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like none of the games they've all been like, oh, they're
they exist.
Yeah, they exist. They're a side-scrolling shooter, and it's like, okay.
So like Crystal Dreams is really funny because the reason it's called that is it's not canon to any of the content, insofar as anything can be canon in Robotech. Mm-hmm. They're fighting these, like, crystalline things. Do you know why?
Is it a dream?
Great. Nope. Because it's what the N64 could render at scale.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They created an enemy race just because it's what the N64 could do.
Yep.
It's beautiful. You should take a look at the GameCube PS2 Xbox game.
Yeah.
I'd be curious how that plays in like an emulated situation with better performance.
Mm-hmm.
I will say at the time it did not perform particularly well. But also it's weird. It's very odd. Published by a company I know mostly for VHS cassettes.
Is that Battlecry?
TDK.
Battlecry, right?
Yes, Battlecry. Yes, I own it. It's right over there somewhere. TDK is the publisher of that game.
Man, you should send that over to me.
Fucking weird.
Unless it's worth like $1,000 or something. Which
I'm sure you could find a way to get a hold of a very real.
I probably could. Who am I kidding? Who am I kidding?
And not at all just a downloaded ISO of a disc.
Steam Deck ho.
Yeah, it's not good. I want to reiterate, it's not good. As a kid, I was like, this is not good. And it's hard as shit, but it's weird and kind of neat for being weird. We appreciate weird. Okay, let's take a break here. We've been going for an hour and 20 minutes. Let's take a pause. We're going to come back. We're going to do a little bit of new business. And then we'll call it from there. So, stick around. Change it up that time. Keep them on their feet. We have re-entered your ear holes with our voices. And we're going to do a little smidge of news, because some things have happened since we've done a new segment. There was the Pokemon Presents last week. Almost exactly a week ago from recording. Not a ton of news came out of this. We now know the name of the next Pokemon mainline game. These are Wind and Waves. But the more important thing we know is, one, they're Switch 2 only. And two, they're coming out... Oh, go ahead.
No, that is interesting, isn't it? Because we've always kind of had the question posed, especially coming into the Switch generation, I would say, was one of the times where this was the biggest. Is like a lot of the time, Pokemon games have kind of not shown up that fast on the next generation of hardware, and they've been very late games on the preceding sort of generation. And they may, in fact, wait for a sort of cheaper iteration of the portable hardware has been, a lot of the time has been the case.
That is definitely not happening on the Switch 2.
I don't think the Switch 2 price is going to drop in 2027.
We'll be lucky if it stays the same.
Yes, exactly. So that I felt was quite interesting, because the fact that having some sort of, even if it was very wonky, Switch 1 version of like the kind of olive branch to affordability, perhaps. You wonder whether they would keep that option open, but definitively it's out. This is going to be Switch 2 exclusive.
And Greg touched on the other part of the announcement, which is that it's a 2027 game, in spite of everybody being sure this is a 2026 game. Negative.
Yeah, well, again, if they've been trying to recreate the anniversary playbook from the 20th, Sun and Moon, of course, did debut at the towards the end of that year, but it just seems like development-wise, it's presumably just not feasible to make it for that particular year. When in 27, I guess, is another question. If it's relatively early in the year, then it's only kind of missing that by a few months, relatively. But of course, it's worth mentioning that up until Scarlet and Violet, they had that new generation cadence absolutely locked down from the beginning, as every 3 years was the rhythm that they hit. And I guess it ties back to the whole Yamauchi or just general belief in Japan about fads lasting 3 years, that they had to kind of refresh it on that sort of rhythm, for new sort of waves of kids, to get interested in it, that's how long it takes for a certain amount of the audience to kind of age out of it or lose interest in it, and you got to keep refreshing it, and of course, by then it's we already have kind of missed that 3 year spot once, and now we're gonna miss it again. Essentially, it's going to be 5 years, right, by the time we actually get there.
I think the other thing that's happened, though, is they found ways to keep the brand fresh between major releases. They've refreshed the entire anime structure. We talked about the trading card game extensively. They found opportunities to heavy merchandise around things that aren't new, brand new. Here's another 100 Pokemon we're dropping into the Pokedex kind of merchandising. I was talking with these guys ahead of time. I was looking at the Pokemon centers in Japan, essentially rebuilt their store layouts, yesterday, between opening and closing the previous day, and closing the previous day, reopening the next day, because they held all the Pokopia merch until the game came out. Like, didn't even show it. And then they flooded the zone with all kinds of new Pokopia merch, including new Pokemon forms. They've been introducing new Pokemon forms outside of the standard new generation template. Like, Pokopia has 4 or 5. I mean, this goes all the way back to fucking Meltan on Pokemon Go. So, like, they've found ways to not necessarily have to do the big, heavy shift over, but also keep the brand fresh. It doesn't necessarily tie the anime to the progression of traveling the world in the series anymore. They'll do that to start with, but then they'll send them to some non-canon to the video games place for a while, or have them do something else. And that's fine. Like, you can create that refresh other ways. And the Pokemon enterprise has so many conduits for entry that even if you still believe in the 3-year fad, there's other things you can hook the younger kids on besides the newest game. And so that gives them more angles to, like, make it work. And also, I mean, the games are just getting harder to make because they're bigger and they're on more complicated systems, and there's a higher expectations from a technical perspective. It probably just isn't feasible to make one of these games in 3 years anymore.
At least with the sort of methodology that Game Freak employs, right? I mean, I get, theoretically, with the enormous profits that it generates, you could reinvest that money into some sort of development pipeline that could potentially churn things out faster, but it presumably become an entirely different, development company and process and everything. They wouldn't be the way they are anymore.
You could make an argument that even then it's not possible because of the amount of just design work that has to go into creating a new generation of Pokemon, creating a new environment, like a new ecosystem in which you set this game, building that world, creating the characters, building up the marketing machine to go with them, getting the anime sort of aligned with the new designs, and getting the merch teams involved. That, like, it's just physically, structurally not possible anymore.
Well, and it would be such a break from the kind of processes that they've been, employing, right, which have been enormously successful. That's the thing about it, is what you've got to say. I mean, for all the kind of, the certain amount of doubt of, like, okay, the thing about the Switch consolidating, the separate hardware lines of portable and console into one, and it's like more expensive, than the portables had historically been, and the price of the games was going up. So it's like, okay, like 3DS hit, like $40, but here we're going to, $60 on the original Switch and stuff. And how are they going to be able to hit that mainstream market as effectively with that more kind of premium console kind of pricing? And did they? I mean, many of the most successful games in franchise history were those Switch games. So it presumably, that part of it, you could kind of feel maybe a little bit better about. Maybe that to some extent eased their concerns about making it Switch 2 exclusive, Winds and Waves. But still, the cost of the device is going to be, especially if it might be increased by the market conditions before the Winds and Waves come out in 27, is not going to be helpful in that regard, certainly. No.
But I mean, it could also just be a matter of that you look at 2027 and go, like, is the Switch even going to be a viable platform at that point for us to release games on? Like, there's you're gaming out so far ahead that you just kind of have to figure it out.
Well, and
but,
again, do you feel like it'd be drag on development to have to go, okay, well, we've got a sort of benchmark here, but we need to like maintain some kind of scalability or, something where it could still work on the old platform. Is that just time and money that you'd rather spend making, the product be as good as it can be for one target and one target only, so.
Especially when they went through the effectively we're sorry patch on the last game.
Yeah, sure.
The other thing that I think is worth mentioning, is the fucking weird Game Boy shaped music player with a different song on every cartridge.
I'm so annoyed by that. I really wish that we had gotten some sort of Game Boy Classic with some games loaded on it. This does nothing for me.
Well, they sold out, so I guess we lose. We lose again, boys. It's so dumb. If this had been fresh, if this had been a fresh wound to my ability to comprehend reality rather than one that's had a week to heal, this could have distracted RFN for 20 minutes. It's dumb. It's dumb beyond words.
It felt to me as if it was just one of these things where someone somewhere had clearly earmarked, like, we have to have some sort of miniature Game Boy product to sell for the 30th anniversary.
Maybe.
We don't really care what, if anything, it does. Maybe it's a paperweight. And in the end,
they had the Legos.
Yeah, true. Yeah, you've already got Lego Game Boy. But at some point, the quote-unquote functionality that was settled on, in lieu of it being something, that Guillaume might have wanted in terms of playing, some preloaded Game Boy games, was this.
It's weird.
There's already, there were toys, right? I think I've seen people comment, they're back.
So.
There's some toy for babies where you have these little cartridges that you can load into some sort of player.
That's kind of a normal. No, there's been lots of these. There's a whole thing of fake record players around Christmas that play Christmas music, but the disc is just a key that tells it what song to play. The music's in the device. These are a thing, and there's nothing special about this except it's got Pokemon and is Game Boy shaped and is completely fucking unnecessary. Beyond that, I don't know that there really was all that much Pokemon news. That there was a lot of updates on mobile games, which whatever. There was nothing in the animation space, which I was surprised by. Pokemon sleep is still a thing, John. You could still go to sleep and have your Pokemon come wake you up in the morning.
Man, the fantasy is still there.
Living the dream. Pun not intended. But I don't recall there being much else of super note.
One of the starters is a Pomeranian.
That's true. One's a leaf. There's another fucking water gecko. Congratulations, those are our starters. It looks nice. Winds and Waves, despite being a shitty name, looks nice. But we'll see. In Japanese, it is literally still Winds and Waves. They have Japanese phoneticized the English words, despite the fact that there is a Japanese word for both of those terms. They have still called them Winds and Waves, which is just so people understand people know that the R sound in Japanese is not, or the L sound in Japanese is kind of a thing, but that's easy. The R replacement's super normal. They don't have a W sound nominally. They have a couple thing like wa. They could say wa, but the rest of W is fucking Adventure Time when you're trying to figure out how you're going to say it. So, I could pronounce it, but I'd look at it and just go, fuck that. It is pain. It is tortured. So good job, everyone involved in creating Pokemon. I believe it would be pronounced Uendu, or something like that. They use the U sound. It's fucked up. It's fucked up, man. I love it. I fucking love it. I love this dumb fucking series. But yeah, I think that's basically it. It was a weirdly quiet Pokemon Direct for a major anniversary. We also had a partner Direct because Nintendo refuses to stop. Greg, you played the demo of one of these games,
Indie
right?
World, right? Obviously,
Indie World, yeah. Sorry, that partner Direct. Indie World.
Yeah, so the Denshattack was the one that caught my eye because I'd seen some coverage of this, I think, of last year's TGS or something. I think even though it's like a European developed game, I think, but
it is, yes,
pretty sure
it was, I believe
it was exhibiting at TGS, I think, last year a little bit. But it catches the eye with that kind of Jet Set Radio aesthetic, and also the gameplay. Even though obviously you've got all these kind of 3D kind of camera angle changes and all that, to me it reminds me a lot of Bit Trip Runner. Basically, in terms of, you are a train, obviously you're going on tracks, and every now and again you've got actions that you're going to have to perform to kind of stay on track. Obviously with Bit Trip Runner, that would be, avoid an enemy, blocking a projectile or whatever. Here you gotta, you slow down to take turns, you gotta switch tracks, so you've got to do jumps, you can do tricks, in the air to sort of earn some bonus points, which is something that I think Runner 2 did, if I remember correctly, at least. I can't remember if it was in the first one or not. But yeah, you've got that kind of, gameplay, which is, just that kind of where you get in a zone of, reacting to the kind of hazards that are in front of you and doing everything on time and properly. But just with this, very kind of drastically different like scenario and aesthetic, and the way they can kind of, like I said, the camera move changes and all that to sell like crazy things of scale happening, like volcanoes are coming into play and all this kind of stuff. It seems, pretty interesting. You've got to presumably have to be, kind of, amenable to that kind of gameplay, that goes presumably at higher levels, it could be quite exacting and stuff. Although it's very forgiving in terms of kind of setting you back and whatnot, like more so than Runner. Because I think, did Runner just put you back at the very start of the level when you had a mistake, and then there were checkpoints in... I think there were checkpoints in Runner 2, I want to say.
There are definitely checkpoints in Runner 2.
Yes, and you could slide under them or something.
You could skip them.
You could kind of do that. It's like bonuses. What Shovel Knight would go on to do a little bit, right? Where you could break the checkpoints if you wanted like bigger rewards or something. But here, at least in this demo, like if I screwed something up, like it would set you back a very modest amount most of the time, and you were back on your way to to doing it correctly. So yeah, this was the kind of cool thing, to lead off with, and it's something I'll be monitoring for sure.
So I have found the actual writing for Pokemon. It's Pokemon Uebu for waves, essentially. Uebu and Uindo, like window. But fuck, just write fuck you, Pokemon. Why would you write it like that? It's so stupid. The other Indie Direct stuff, it was kind of a little bit quiet. Indie Direct, like all things considered, like there was stuff in there, but it wasn't like it was short. I want to say it was only 15 minutes long. And there weren't a ton of announcements, if that makes sense. There's one other one I wanted to touch on. Mini Shoot Adventures is really good. It's really good.
That's what I've heard, yeah.
And Blueprints people really like. But yeah, like, honestly, the thing that I'm probably most interested coming out of it is either Denshattack or Heave-Ho 2. Because that Heave-Ho is a completely fucking ridiculous game. And so more of that is a net positive. But yeah, I mean, I think there were only like 12 featured games, and then the sizzle reel had like 5 more. Like, it was, all things considered, it was a relatively short one.
There were two co-op games that I have an eye on, I guess, both from Canadian studios, which is kind of funny. Clay Entertainment had one, I forget what it was called, but it was out right after it was, available the day of the presentation. And then Drinkbox Studios have something coming out. I'm
sorry,
I don't have more details than that. I forget their names.
I don't have much time. Yeah, the Guacamelee team had one. I can't remember what it was. Was that one Rotwood?
Rotwood was Clay, and that came out this week.
Okay.
And Drinkbox was Blighted.
Okay.
Yeah, that comes out in the fall.
Yeah, and I think that one. Yes. Yeah. Yep, that's right. Yeah, there wasn't a ton to go through there. Like some of the stuff they haven't even got pages up at Nintendo's website yet. So, work in progress on that. And a lot of these games have been out before, like My Little Puppy is on PC already. Moonlighter getting a sequel is kind of interesting. I think Widow might already be out on something else. And then obviously Mini Shoot Adventures has been around for a little bit on PC. It came to all the consoles. And then of course Blueprints is a PC game coming in. But beyond that, Greg, do you have any other new business?
Yeah, new business-wise, I wrapped up Final Fantasy VII Remake, Intergrade, as well, with the intermission chapter, the Yuffie chapter as well. Not terribly much more to say about that, really. I was relatively pleased with how it finished. I don't know whether maybe if you were more invested in Final Fantasy VII and more knowledge of it, you would be potentially, I enjoyed it more or less, depending on what it's doing there. I guess is sort of we're saying about like how would they kind of try and get a sense of finality while also you got to set up the next one, and very much what I guess it's been out for 4 years, so. And I'm sure people have heard a lot of it, but it's quite new, so, to Nintendo platforms, so I hesitate to sort of give that much away, but it does sort of raise the possibility of things playing out differently from how they played out the first time. So the exciting possibility that Spock might shout Khan this time, is there. Sorry. I'll never forget that.
Jesus Christ.
Maybe that's like a horrible thought for people that are really attached to the existing narrative, but for me it's kind of a bit of a shrug, because it's like, okay, I'll take your word for it. But still, like I said, they did give it a big, very, very big sort of, you could kind of tell extra kind of boss battle for that part of the narrative to kind of wrap it up. And the Yuffie chapter is kind of cute and funny until it's not, because it has to run into the events that are playing out in the regular narrative, because it's got like a parallel.
The Dawn whatever.
Sure. So, anyway, what I moved on to from there is Resident Evil Requiem. So this came out this week, got reviewed very well, including on Switch 2. So I thought it was again somewhat sort of reinforced by the fact that Final Fantasy VII Remake kind of went well, splitting some time between TV and portable. I thought, I'll give this a go. And so I've not played that much of it so far, because definitely I want to, a little bit like what I talked about with Final Fantasy VII Remake, I want to sort of establish it on the TV sort of first, really, kind of get the rhythm of the game down, and then, kind of, when I kind of know, like, the way it kind of trades back and forth between the two different characters, as we've seen in the pre-release stuff and all that, what would be a good time to, like, get some hours in, portably. And what would be best to kind of leave to the television. And so, so far, just a little bit of the first couple of hours or so, almost all on the TV. I've looked at it portably. It's definitely, because it's relying on the kind of super sampling to try and kind of approximate the kind of image that you're getting on the on PlayStation 5, basically. Like, there's definitely things about it in motion and stuff that like my eyes perceive as peculiar, but my eyesight and my setup is not really good enough to kind of fully zero in on, it's these sort of artifacts around certain things or in the motion or anything like that. Like you could it's just kind of odd enough. Like it has a different kind of look enough to know that they're, the DLSS or whatever, the AI upscaling is doing some heavy lifting here. But the fact of the matter is, when you just kind of, for me anyway, with my eyesight, my setup, looking at it during play, it's very impressive, and indeed, like the frame rate is pretty smooth from what I've seen on TV. Now, most of that was in the first person perspective, because it basically makes recommendations. It says, the sort of intended or recommended, experience is to play Grace's section in first person, which are more horror centric, and then Leon's sections in third person. And so I just, went with the recommended kind of settings there, and you can kind of see why, because I think the Grace's sections are the more, and we talked about this dichotomy relative to Resident Evil Revelations like a few weeks ago. It's a little bit similar to that in terms of, let's try and have like more. We'll have some more of the old school kind of horror emphasis and less action, in one setting, and then we'll have more of the kind of RE4 and onwards, kind of guns blazing, dealing with hordes of enemies kind of action in another setting, right? And so I guess when you do it first person, it can be kind of scarier, so it kind of fits, better with the more horror centric thing. And the other thing I would say is that, again, because that's more like about the anticipation of like what's around a corner rather than like a bunch of stuff actually being on screen at all times, it doesn't strain the frame rate, or it wouldn't strain the frame rate nearly as much, right? And I would definitely say, personally, and I would imagine this is true for a lot of people, are much more sensitive to frame rate fluctuations in first person, right? That's where they start to either, you can even, the more extreme edge maybe get more motion sickness, or it's just not nice. Like when you're trying to do that immersion thing of having first person, that there's an extra premium, I feel like, on the frame rate. Certainly if it can't be 60, it needs to be at least consistent, right? That's what you're looking for there. And it seems like with the Leon stuff, where they're going to emphasize more, right, we're going to throw, a bunch of enemies at you and whatnot at the same time. Yeah, especially on Switch 2, maintaining the stable frame rate is more tricky, but, if you're playing it in third person, then that's not such a big deal. So I kind of get why they went with the recommendations they did, and so far seems to work pretty well. In that regard, it sounds like maybe there's some more kind of action-packed stuff with Leon later that give the Switch 2 version some more trouble, but overall, reviewers seem pretty happy with it. So we'll see how that goes, I guess, as the game moves on. But for now, I said the more horror-based stuff, was pretty effective, I felt like. I mean, I think with movies, I'm just so completely desensitized. It's very difficult for horror movies to make that much of an impression on me. But, with a game, because it's involving you a little bit more, I think it certainly is a bit more sort of apt to generate tension effectively, and they actually do that quite well. The one thing I will say, and this is probably more for people who might be playing these in bigger chunks than me, it'll probably take me quite a while to get through it, even though it's not meant to be a terribly long game. I don't know, 15 hours or something, I think is sort of the ballpark kind of figure I've seen for playthroughs on this from, coverage online. And that's fine with me if it, kind of delivers a really memorable experience in that time. But there can definitely possibilities here for tonal whiplash, I think, because it's like you'll be playing with Grace and it's like very full on with the gore, but also just quite like harrowing kind of stuff. You get this like flashback to a traumatic event that's quite unpleasant, and then she's getting kidnapped and it's all very horrible and all this kind of stuff. And then, when you get to Leon, And he's like, and you probably may have seen this if you've been looking at pre-release like media for it. You know, he's in a hospital and people have gone, you know, infected or crazy or whatever's happening there. And there's like a chainsaw and it's flipping around on the floor and zombies are getting dragged along on the floor with the holding onto the chainsaw. And the kid takes out some guy in a doctor's jacket and goes, I want a second opinion. And it's like, you know,
fuck off, Leon.
It is like, and I don't think it's like by accident or, you know, they don't know this. Like, they know it's a tonal whiplash thing.
We should have left your ass in Spain.
It's just one of these things.
I can just see the credits now, written by Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's like
it very much feels like you know, it's like, well, we're not going to run away from it. We're going to have these two bits feel really different. I get it, you know, a lot of it. I guess if you're going to justify it narratively, would just be, well, the one character, you know, has not been through what the other one has been through, so he's just like water off a duck's back. You know, I'll just make my 80s, 90s quips and get on with it. Like, so, yeah, like I said, I don't think it's like especially bad or whatever or anything, but I would say, I can imagine if someone's just like, I want to, like, you know, shut everything else out, I want to lock myself in and play this like horror roller coaster thing, to be scared. Like, those bits are going to kind of derail that. If if you're trying to do it in a big, like, not necessarily one sitting, obviously, if it's like 15 hours, but, you know, like a few big sessions of play, I wonder how well that interplay is going to really function. For me, who's probably going to do it in smaller bits, I don't think it'd necessarily be that much of a problem, because it's just like, well, now I'm doing the kind of action bit. And, you know, tomorrow, the next day, I'll do another horror bit. Like, we break it up like that. Maybe it doesn't, you know, kind of give you that same whiplash. But we'll see. We'll see how it progresses. We'll see how quickly I can fit it in. But it's definitely impressive for now. I'd say that, you know, the portable, what I've seen of the portable mode, it's a lot of the same stuff at play that you kind of saw with Final Fantasy VII Remake, in that it seems like the upscaling to the portable display has, you know, the similar kind of more struggles with things like hair and stuff, you know, things that are already a little bit of a weakness relatively. You know, with the way they've kind of scaled the graphics down, you know, for this Switch 2 version, but it's still kind of, doing a pretty remarkable job of, you know, selling the fact that, you know, this is kind of an image set, you know, suitable for play on that, you know, pretty big Switch 2 screen with a, you know, native 1080p resolution, considering I think, the sort of estimate for, Resident Evil Requiem is that it's actually like rendering for portable play at 360p, and then the DLSS does the rest. That's kind of balmy that it is, you know, that what's actually being rendered is that low res, and then it, you just sort of, you know, the super sampling extrapolates from that, and you get this image that, like I say, it's got these weird qualities to it, but bottom line is it does pretty much hold up, you know, on that kind of scrutiny. It's kind of remarkable.
That Capcom's on a little bit of a heater right now.
They're very busy, aren't they? We got Monster Hunter Stories next week, and then Pragmata's been brought a week forward in the middle of April now. And, you know, it's, again, we've said it before, so much more sort of full-throated kind of support for the system than they were with the original Switch.
Oh, yeah, the like watching from a distance Switch, going like, oh, we don't want to get burnt again.
No,
and then they got burned by being too concerned about getting burned.
They've really jumped in with both feet, and it seems to be going pretty well so far.
Yeah. Anything else?
Oh no, I think that'll do for now.
All right, John. I know you've got we'll say it, a new beginning for us.
Speaking of heater,
oh no.
So I finally have started Oblivion Remastered.
Which he's been promising for almost a month, by the way.
Yeah.
Catch everybody up on the story.
I was just waiting to, you know, it was Oblivion Watch officially. I believe the press called it that.
The press,
not me. And so finally went on sale. I picked it up for PS5. The thing is, I will say the Switch. I think the Switch version. I think there is some doubt as to the performance on the Switch version.
Yes. I mean, yes.
I did see John Redden, kind of covering the Fallout 4 release, which seems to be another case where you had media pretty close to release that was like, I don't know. Well, this is good, and then when it actually comes out, it's not as bad as what has been expected. So that's what John articulated in the video on the NWR YouTube channel, is that actually, whether it was a case of things coming together late or whatever it was, that some of that pre-release media kind of really undersold how well they managed to kind of navigate the trade-offs in there. Although that interestingly has 3 separate settings, because it's got we mentioned before that with the Skyrim update for Switch 2, they introduced the patch to the update introduced a fidelity mode, a graphics quality mode and a performance mode, 60 and 30. But Fallout has 60, 40 and 30 modes. Yeah. So you can really kind of pick, which, the sort of point on that curve you prefer.
Yeah. Yeah, on PS5, I think it has 2. It says performance and, graphics kind of mode sort of thing. But yeah, I will say on PS5, it is a bit crashy, but, I am messing with the game engine quite a bit, I will say. So I've started going in the main quest, but really the first things first, I hit YouTube and I found a good guide about, what you should do right out of the gate to make sure your character is as strong as possible. Of course, I rolled the famous stealth archer build, which is really what that means is that you prioritize your sneak attribute and your marksman attribute. So the way you play the character is you sneak around and you take advantage of the fact that when you shoot somebody with an arrow, you get a 3 times damage bonus. And from there, you can there's all kinds of ways to break this game. Duplicate item glitches, cheesy ways to level up your stats. The leveling up, I can't compare it really too much to the way you used to level up in Oblivion. You still level up attributes. It's the same thing. You have your major attributes, your minor skills. And your major attributes are what you should choose in order to affect your damage, right? So, for example, with a stealth archer build, you pour everything into agility first and foremost, because that is what scales the damage for your bow. And then after that, you do speed, you do endurance, with the whole goal being able to get the most damage out of your bow. And then if anything really comes at you, you can just kite it, run away from it. Basically things can't touch you and you can kill things from afar. Well, and of course the leveling is, the way it works is that, as you level up, all the enemies around you get stronger. And so that's why in the first game, in the first version of it, you could effectively, you could back yourself into a broken character by the time your character gets up to high level, because you could have a high level character, but if you haven't been putting enough points into your main damage attribute, then your character will be incredibly weak and you'll be facing really, really strong monsters and you'll just have a really hard time at the end of the game. Or as your character, moves up higher in levels. So that's been smoothed out quite a bit here from what I can see, because I don't think there's really any you still level up, you still go through levels by leveling up your various skills and attributes. But I think it's a lot more lenient in terms of what you put them into at any one time. I remember playing Oblivion and, the way I was trying to min-max my character, it backed me into having a spreadsheet. Okay, at this level, I have to put points in this and this and this. And then if you screw something up, you'll probably be screwed at endgame kind of thing. It kind of backs you into a sort of a fear-driven way of leveling your character, which isn't fun. And so this is I think with this run, I would say that I removed a lot of the friction. By the time, like at level 2, I had my sneak at 100, and then I had marksman at 100. And, the thing is with Oblivion, it's always, okay, well, the joke is always like, all right, well, if you want to level up your acrobatic skill, well, you just sit there and you jump 1,000 times in a row or 10,000 times in a row, and eventually you will get your acrobatic skill to 100, extend that to all the other skills as well. And I've done some of that, but there's ways where you can do that. Like, that is still how you have to kind of power level your skills. But it's funny because there are some ways of doing it that have been removed from the original game, and then there's other ways of doing it because they, of course, had to, rebuild the entire world, so the geometry of the world has changed, which has opened up other ways to do it. And, the interactions with certain NPCs, where, if you close a door, it opens a window to cheesing the game. So some ways that I did that, there's a certain NPC when I had to level my sneak. There's a certain NPC, like a highwayman, a bandit that you can walk up to, and he says, hey, give me 100 gold. And so you give him 100 gold. And then he says, oh, you're smarter than you look, because I would have killed you if you didn't give me 100 gold. And then he walks away. And so but he stays in your area, right?
Yeah.
But he also, and so you can, crouch down and walk up and pickpocket him. And most NPCs in the game, if you just walk up and pickpocket him, they'll say, hey, guard, this guy tries to rob me, and then you get bounty and you get thrown in jail or you have to pay a fine or whatever, right? This guy, for whatever reason, nothing happens. He'll just basically complain and just say, whatever. And so you can sit there, and every time you try to pickpocket him, that levels up your sneak. And
God.
And so you just stand there and pickpocket him repeatedly.
God.
And it takes you about 10 minutes, and your sneak is at 100. It's the same for acrobatics, where you go to Anvil, which is one of the towns, and you go to around the back of this one house, and the way that the ground comes up, the little, like the eaves trough of the house, the little thing of the roof, you can just sit there and jam yourself under it, and you just hit your jump button, and you just keep spamming that for about 10 minutes, and your acrobatics goes all the way up to 100. And,
oh my God.
So there's just but this is the thing, and the reason why it's like, I think, as funny as I think that is, it really does it. And on top of that, there's a gold duplication glitch, which is just easy. Well, an item duplication glitch, which you can then use for gold duplication, which is just hysterically easy. It's effectively putting something into a barrel, putting something else into a barrel that's stacked, pulling it out, and then if you put like one healing potion in there, and you have a stack of 100 arrows, you put the healing potion in, you click the right buttons, you put the arrows in there, and all of a sudden, and you take it all out, and it'll turn the one healing potion into 100 healing potions. So, and you can do that with literally everything. So right now, my character currently, and then you can also find a chest that has gold in it, and then you can do the same duplication glitch to gold. So my character right now is like level 21, but even at level 2, my character had I think 100 sneak. Marksman was a real pain, because I had to sit there and literally just fire arrows at these guys that don't respond to your arrows. That was
so stupid.
That was so stupid. It was really dumb. It took forever. But yeah, right now my character has 20 million gold, so gold is just removed from the game pretty much. But actually I don't mind that, because one of the things I always hated about the original game is that you always need gold. So what that forces you to do is loot everything, which takes you into the terrible inventory system, because you wind up always being over encumbered. And if you're wandering in the wilderness, it's just a pain in the ass. You're always being asked to make this dumb trade-off of, okay, I'm carrying a bunch of stuff I don't need, but I have to sell it for gold, so I want to keep it. It just removes all of that from the game, so it just makes the game actually a lot more fun to not have to deal with that. In my opinion, is like kind of a poor design choice. But I also have 20 million torches. The thing is with that, and about 60,000 lockpicks. The thing is with that is that neither one of those items have any weight to them, so you can have as many as you want. But what's interesting, James, is that when you do the item duplication glitch, you start off, it doubles the items, whatever stack you put in, it doubles it. So, you put in 200 becomes 400, 400 becomes 800, and so on and so on. Up to the point where you're doubling like 1 million becomes 2 million, becomes 4 million, becomes, 8 million. And that's how you eventually, you can just keep doing it. But what's interesting is that you put the item, and you can do this with pretty much barrels anywhere. You can do it with, you can actually do, with bodies of enemies. Anything that's a container in the game that you can, like, because you can kill something and then open it up like a container, open the body up like a container, and then put something on the corpse, right? So you can do this item duplication glitch anywhere. But what's interesting is the more that you do it, so let's just say, like, at one point when I was trying to double my gold from like 10 million to 20 million, when you bring it, the more you bring back into your inventory, you can tell the game stops in the background and tries to, like, basically parse I don't know what it's doing, but it seems like it counts all the items in your inventory one more time. So the more items you duplicate and try to bring back in, the longer the game takes to finish that transaction. So when I brought like the 20 million gold back in, the game sat there for about a minute, not doing anything. And you could tell in the background its wheels were just turning, and it was trying to recalculate the items in your inventory.
Smoking.
Yeah, so you can just break that game in so many ways, and there's other things you can do. You can, like, there's like stones that you can find out in the wilderness where they'll grant you, like, one of the things you can do right at the start is you can get, like, what's called the bound bow, and what that is an ethereal bow that is granted to you by a stone, and it's supposed to expire after an hour, but if you do it the right way, you can drop it, and then it becomes a permanent item, and so you just have that bow for the rest of the game. And it's, you can get it at level 1, and it's way stronger than, like, almost anything else. It's crazy. There's so many ways. Yeah, there's just so many ways you can break this game. But I did actually, when I was trying to level my athletic skill, the easiest way to do that, quote unquote easiest, is by swimming underwater. And so I stopped. I couldn't handle it anymore, but I had to run some errands. So I used one of my headsets, the top that goes over your head. I used that, and I put my PS5 controller down, put the headset on it, and kind of hooked it around the stick going forward, positioned my character right in game, and I just let it roll. And it worked, man.
Good Lord.
It takes so long to do, but yeah, you can do it. So, but the actual game is pretty cool. I'm really enjoying it. The story's really cool. I think it's probably better than Skyrim. I just think, I think the story it tells is more interesting. Skyrim can be a little dull for me. It's a lot of, like, up in the mountains and snow and just dealing with dragons and stuff, which is just kind of like, eh. Whereas this is all Oblivion related, obviously. So it's more like demons and kind of like going over to the plane of Oblivion and, like, with its kind of Hellraiser-y sort of look to it and everything. And yeah, I'm really glad that they remastered it. I think it needed it because it's hard going back to the original game, I feel. And this it looks great. Still crashes quite a bit, more than I would like. I also don't know if that's just because I have 20 million torches in my inventory. I've kind of messed with it a little bit, so I don't really know how the game world reacts to that.
Yeah, go figure.
Yeah. But you can just break it so many ways, but it's fun. So yeah, so I'm gonna be playing through that, and I'm getting all of the guild quest lines and stuff. But there's a lot of stuff even beyond the base game. Obviously, in this, it includes, like, Shivering Isles, Knights of the Nine, all that stuff. So
oh yeah,
there's just hundreds of hours of fun to be had here. But I think my character is at a point now where, it's obviously probably overpowered, but at the same time, my character is not invincible either. Even though if I wanted to, there's a way that you can make your character invisible. completely
You can
invisible.
get him there.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and I could do that. You actually, in the very first quest in the game, you get a stone that lets you put a buff on one piece of armor, or a bow, or a weapon, but in this case, you can use it for armor. And it gives you, it drops your, if you apply it to a single piece of armor, it drops your visibility by 20%. And of course, just using the item duplication glitch, you can make as many of those stones as you want, so you can apply it to all 5 of your pieces of armor, and you are now invisible. And nothing in the game can see you. So you can walk up to enemies and hit them, but then they can't hit you back because they can't see you.
That is so dumb.
Yeah, it's really dumb. And it's funny because the guide I was watching, the guy is like, you don't have to do this if you don't want to, because it doesn't really make the game that fun, but if you want to do it, have at it. It's just, he just kept saying that repeatedly. But yeah, it does remove some of the friction doing some of those things. And also, you never run out of arrows, you never run out of, so all of that stuff where, I'm pretty much playing this in tourist mode. I just kind of want to get through the story and just enjoy the game. Not really looking for a challenge. So it works perfectly fine. So
cool. All right, Guillaume, take us home.
Yeah, well, this will be short because I'm not sure, this is a title that you can't talk about too much because the joy of it, I guess, is in the discovery. But I've been, quote-unquote, playing Blippo Plus. Blippo Plus is, as I said, a quote-unquote game because really it's a FMV collection, I would say.
It's like a TV in your game.
Yeah, so the conceit here, and so this is by published and co-developed, I think, by Panic, who make the Playdate, the little portable with a crank. And so it was released as Blippo on the Playdate, and a version called Blippo Plus came out on Switch. And Steam and other places. But, on the Playdate, of course, it would be not backlit, and black and white. So I didn't want to play that version. So I went with the Switch version, which is full color FMV. And I feel like you want those colors because, okay, so the premise is that there's a bend in space. They call it the anomaly. What we're doing is that we're receiving TV transmissions from an alien planet, who knows how many million light years away. And as you watch their programming, you realize that they are aware of this bend in space, and they're aware that we're watching. They keep, talking about how they catch these TV channels under PDs, which is of course short for playdates. They're always commenting so this anomaly, huh? How weird is that? So aliens are watching, and so they're aware of us. As you watch this content, sometimes you will unlock new packets of data, and so when you on the Playdate, how it worked is that you just downloaded new videos, right? There was not that much space to hold tons and tons of video. I'm assuming that the Switch version just has everything, and it's just trying to, do the same kind of unlock scheme as the same kind of progression as the original release on Playdate. So as you watch the content, you get to unlock more content, and then there's kind of a progression there. The aliens start making programming specifically for us, the aliens, and trying, here's our dictionary channel where we're going to teach you our words, and our science channel. And, they're also, apparently it's ratings week, so they're trying to get as many alien eyeballs on the content as they can. The videos are all very much, have this analog quality, are very much patterned on public access TV, which I only have a passing familiarity with because there was not a rich ecosystem of public access TV in Quebec but I am aware of its existence, and I am aware of some, like, there was definitely TV channels in Quebec that had the means, the production quality of public access TV. So I recognize the what they're going for here. But yeah, like, if you don't have any idea what I'm talking about, you can look up on YouTube. Like, you just type public access. Wild. You'll find plenty of videos that make fun of it, or, you know. And it's funny because, like, I was watching Blippo and I was seeing, like, okay, so these guys, like, there's like this dance, like these three people just dancing, like, very, like, dressed like kind of 80s looking, and I was like, well, that's a little bit much. Like, was that really something that was on TV? And just, like, scrolling through this video called The Wild World of Public Access Television, Remember When, on YouTube, which I'm not watching with sound on, so I'm not I haven't vetted it. Like, it might be terribly offensive or something, but
probably
I'm watching the footage. And, like, it's Blippo nailed this look. They nailed what they were going for, because, like, what I'm seeing here is exactly like the videos on Blippo. The videos are maybe, like, each a minute long. Like, you get different channels, right? Like, different themes, and a particular sequence will only be about a minute long, and then it moves on to something else. Maybe in the same vein, you know, because it's on the same channel. And that only lasts 1 minute, and then you've got the next one, and then that's it. Like, each channel runs 3 1-minute long videos. So you know, you watch that, and then eventually you unlock something more. And there are a few kind of slightly more interactive, like, kind of like posting bulletin board kind of things, where you can see, like, missed connections messages, or the astronomy club, you know, kind of talking to each other and, like, talking excitedly about observing the anomaly in space. Various, like, tips to like something called, what is it, like, recipes for God damn it, for hermits or something, and, like, the just coaching you on trying to open, like, imagine having a conversation with someone. Who do you want to have a conversation with? Imagine them in your mind. Like, really weird fucking stuff.
Like, I can, to give a little context, public access was usually a function of, back when cable companies had to secure franchise operations from local communities, one of the concessions they would make is there's a channel available for the public to put content in, and effectively no charge, or incredibly nominal charge to have your thing put on there, but they still controlled when you got to air stuff. So if you were going to go up there with your show that's just, like, pure racism and vitriol, you're probably going on at, like, 3 a.m. But there are some stuff that I remember as a kid being completely fucking weird nonsense on mine. But I remember hearing stories from my father that predate me, or at least I'd predate my memory, of, like, people coming into the studio and, like, having a fight and all kinds of just weird, wild shit that used to be on there. It's like, that's what they're trying to tap into here. Yeah. And like, every community had their own. That's the important thing, because it was a function of the locality giving a franchise to the cable operator. So the idea was, like, it was local content from local creators who basically were able to put it up there. Or you'd have, like, the occasional, I'm not going to use the word cult, but cult, that would distribute the tapes to their followers and all over communities, who would then reserve space to put them on there. It more or less is a dead concept at this point. But, like, at the time, when there was really no way to get your message out, there wasn't, like, just a YouTube thing. It served a material purpose, but mostly it just attracted fucking weirdos.
But like, was Mystery Science Theater 3000 like public access originally, or
no? I want to say, well, it might have been. It might have been public access, and then I think it moved to a local broadcast channel. They got picked up by a local broadcast channel, but it might have started on public access. But they're one of the more long running public access things that in my neighborhood or in my city was like, I think it was called like the Rock and Roll Dracula. And it was just a guy in a bad Dracula costume doing a call-in show. And they would like play music and give life advice. And he had a cast of people also wearing bad costumes. It's really stupid. I mean, really fucking dumb and nonsense. But it was just a thing. You could just watch it. And I think it went for years and years and years and years. But some of these things found an audience of also weirdos, not of normal people. Normal people didn't watch public access. You'd have to be fucking broken in the head.
Right.
But you know.
But yeah, so yeah, basically like the whole game evokes kind of like a feel, right? For if you want to feel nostalgic for the 90s, I guess. They're even like so they've got like the full kind of TV menu, right? Like TV guide menu where you can like you press B, you exit the channel, and you've got you can select what you're going to watch next, right? And you've got the list of the programming and of the channels, but you can also just zap by pressing up and down on the D-pad directly from one channel to the next. So there are channels between channels, like your program guide will not list the slightly risque, what's it called? Nocturnal Transmissions is what's playing right now. I see on channel 99, which I do not have access to. It is scrambled for me, the signal, but I can almost make out something, and I can hear some, funky music playing through static. Before this Nocturnal Transmissions thing, it was tentric computing. And sometimes you could get a glimpse of a woman's hand with the red nails, just like caressing an old school keyboard or like a connector or a mouse, with a ball mouse. And sometimes like you can have the subtitles on, you can have the closed captioning on, and like, it will say things like slight moaning sound as she's caressing the mouse, or sleazy electronic saxophone plays, unintelligibly scrambled male voice. Anyway, so that's kind of upsetting a little bit. Yeah, outside of that, like that's basically it. You just watch the content. Occasionally, the quality will degrade. And so you have to go into your set-top box menu, I guess, and go fix the settings. And so you just go tuner calibration, and then like you have to recalibrate your connection if you want to get the good quality picture again. That's about what gameplay there is here, but. So I'm enjoying this. Like I'm into it. But I tried to show Karen a little bit earlier, and she was like, "Yeah, I don't know. I guess it makes me slightly nostalgic." But yeah, she was not nearly as into it, and in fact may have ruined it a little bit for me. So
fair enough.
Yeah, like not everyone is going to be into this, but no, it's interesting. So I say, yeah. Check it out if anything I said here was even slightly tempting. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, just go on YouTube, look up public access TV, and you're gonna get an idea of what you're getting here.
Cool. All right. Well, that is going to do it for us this week. Greg, get us some music so we can go to sleep.
Well, coming up on the 10th, obviously it's the now annual sacred occasion of Mario Day. Now, in this case, it did inspire me to listen to a soundtrack of a game that I own, haven't played, that is on sale, at least in the US, for the blessed occasion of Mario Day, which is Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, the second Mario plus Rabbids game. Now, as I said, they're on sale, not for the first time, and we must assume not for the last. They have to, much like the original Mario plus Rabbids, with that being Ubisoft published, goes on sale much more frequently and much deeper discounts than anything, that Nintendo's ever published. But, this, the original soundtrack for the first Mario plus Rabbids game, of course, was handled by, I think, mostly Grant Kirkhope from, Rare fame, Banjo-Kazooie, all that kind of thing. Now, in this case, we've got a bit of a supergroup of composers, because not only does Kirkhope come back, but we also have Yoko Shimomura, of course, from, associated with Mario RPG things over the years, including the original Super Mario RPG and Mario and Luigi games. And then also Gareth Coker, who, kind of, I guess, emerged into video game composing with the Ori games, Blind Forest, for instance. And then, also, just recently, we would have heard, I think, his work perhaps on Absalom closing music that Guillaume selected a bit ago. I don't know whether he would have been the sole composer on that, but he certainly contributed to it. So, yeah, I didn't go in to this thinking about getting one person's songs in particular or whatever. I just, thought, I could at least sample the soundtrack, and then maybe at some point I will actually play the game. But I listened to quite a few tracks, and this one stuck out to me, perhaps not that shockingly. It's a Shimomura one. I think it's from early in the game, but it's very sort of grandiose, actually. I kind of feel like it could be something from later in the sequence, frankly. Very rousing kind of stuff, rather than just the kind of bouncy kind of feel it might associate with the work on the Mario RPG things. So, I think a very nice way to commemorate this most celebrated of occasions.
All right. On that, it is time for us to go. Bye, everybody.
Later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.